Over the last 10 years, West Indians have been flocking into Britain. Today, there are some 350,000 of them living here, nearly half of them in London. The next biggest community is in Birmingham. Why do they come to this country? To find jobs and better opportunities, and because, as British subjects, they look on Britain as their second home. Their own homelands, 10 beautiful islands in the sun, which for 300 years have been part of the British Commonwealth and Empire, cannot provide work for them all in a rapidly increasing population. These West Indians were among the last to arrive at Southampton before immigration was controlled. At Waterloo Station, many were met by relatives and friends, but some had no one to greet them. Others had only addresses in Manchester, Birmingham or Leeds. To get them on their way, reception committees worked throughout the night. The spectacle, when the 3 boat trains had reached Waterloo, was on a scale unlikely to be seen again. Whether they come by ship or plane, West Indians always want to look their best, from the oldest to the youngest. Especially the youngest. After island villages and towns, the ways of big cities take some getting used to. But sometimes, help is at hand. When they've got over the first problem, finding somewhere to live, what better place to talk things over than on the front steps, as they did back home. As most of the West Indies live by agriculture, the majority who've come to Britain are unskilled for industry, so jobs present a major problem. Officials are sympathetic, but fitting people into the right kind of jobs can take time. London Transport has a highly successful scheme which recruits bus conductors from Barbados, one of the West Indian islands. Candidates are chosen on the island, and some 200 of them come to Britain every year to join London's bus conductor force of more than 14,000 men and women. Some get promotion to driving, perhaps to team up with a fellow countryman. While other West Indians also help to keep the transport services moving. A hospital in Britain without a West Indian nurse has become an exception. These district nurses work in Hackney, a small group of the 4,000 West Indian nurses in England alone. One West Indian is on the London County Council, and 2 are on borough councils. One of them, Councillor Ward of Hammersmith, came from Trinidad 12 years ago. Attached to the Kensington Citizens Advice Bureau, community worker Mrs. Pansy Jeffrey helps with the personal problems of both coloured and white residents. A Nottingham City educational organiser, Eric Irons from Jamaica, is Britain's first West Indian magistrate. In day nurseries in various parts of the country, children of West Indian parents who are both out at work have none of the grown-ups' problems and cares of living in a strange land. Here, everyone gets their share of food, and there's more if it's wanted. They probably can't remember their island homes, and they may never see them again. To them, this is home. At West London's Fernhead Road Methodist Church, the Reverend George Lockett has his hands full at a Sunday morning service. It's a queue for christening. 14 London-born British West Indian babies are taken to the font. And here at the same church is an all-Jamaican wedding. "24-year-old welder Trevor Moss takes the girl next door, Edith Simpson, for his bride. Keen churchgoers, 60% of the congregation of this church is West Indian. 8 out of every 10 weddings are West Indian couples. For shopping, West Indians are really at home in a market with its hustle and bustle, and where there's plenty of choice and variety. Maybe it's a new hat. or vegetables for dinner. Yes, homegrown vegetables, specially sent to London from the islands. A day's outing, and it's raining. Britain's climate is something else that West Indians have to get used to. This party is off to Clacton-on-Sea. "8,000 West Indians served in the British forces during the war, and about 1,000 a year came to Britain just after the war. It was during the early 50s that immigration started in earnest, when 20,000 a year were arriving here, practically all men. But over the next 5 years, more and more women and children arrived to create a family pattern. They're essentially a simple, fun-loving people, and this sort of outing makes them forget their worries. For a few hours, they can escape the bewilderment of trying to adjust themselves to living in a world of different customs and different outlooks. Old prejudices die hard, and misunderstandings can become even more confusing. Though, if you're very young, your problems tend to be different. The lifeblood of West Indians is dancing and music. This mixed jazz ballet group, most of them from Jamaica, is performing at a suburban Red Cross garden fete. They dance in the afternoon, and they dance at night at their clubs and parties. The hotter and thicker the air gets, the more they seem to enjoy themselves. So long as there's music, hot music or cool jazz. Maybe just to listen to or watch, it doesn't matter which. With the new control of immigration, it's more difficult for people to come to Britain unless they have reasonable prospects of jobs, and fewer West Indians are arriving today. But the thousands who are already working in building and engineering, in transport and post office services, in hospitals and factories, show what can be achieved with goodwill on both sides.